What's going on YouTube? This is Wayne with Wayne's Fish World. I'm coming at you with my 55-gallon saltwater tank, and I want to talk about what I'm going to do to my sump. Big changes are coming to my sump, and I found out why hair algae was outbreaking. But first of all, before we go into anything, I want to show you what I picked up today. Oh yeah, that's a Gorgonian. And that's a red spot, well, orange sponge. It was a red-orange sponge. I didn't care which one came in. But that's an orange sponge and a purple Gorgonian. The only way you can classify Gorgonians is if you actually look under their microscope to see what cells are what. Now, when you're putting a sponge and a Gorgonian in the tank, you do not want to expose them to air. If air gets into their bodies, it'll clog their filter feeding, and you just do not expose them to air. And I came down here like not even a minute ago before I hit the camera. I saw these little white things. I was like, oh god, air got on it or something. But actually the polyps are starting to extend on this Gorgonian when it hasn't even been in my tank for an hour yet. So that's a good sign that I've got good water quality. It's in good high flow. Also, that nozzle is aimed directly at it. It's right beside the WP25, and it's a great location. Green star polyps are doing good. I had to get in the tank and do some maintenance, and I had the bags floating. The frog spawn's not coming up. The Kenya tree got knocked over. That's why he's a little angry. Mushrooms doing good. Zinnias, I don't know if they got knocked over or a fish knocked them over, but they're growing, and it actually, I don't know, I might keep letting it grow, but I will definitely frag it soon. Mushrooms. What is that? Does anybody know what that is? Because I don't. That white thing in the background. If you know what that is, let me know. Fish doing good. Hippo tang got rid of ick. Thank God. And I mean, I wasn't really scared about that. Everybody was like, oh, you should quarantine it. I'm going to do a video on quarantining fish. Why it's good, why it's bad, how you can make it good, and how you can make it bad. The first thing I want to talk about, though, is the sump. In the last video, I said I was going to address hair algae. And I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't because I was misinformed. I think I found out the reason my tank had a hair algae outbreak. And if you guys are wondering where the hair algae went, well, it's in the stomach of those two tanks right there. I didn't feed them for about 3 days, and I came back today when I introduced the Gorgonian and the red sponge or orange sponge, and it was gone. And that's awesome. You shouldn't rely on that. It's not fixing the problem, but they ate it. They devoured it. So that's awesome. I came down here maintaining my tank, and I've got to fill the water level back up. And I started maintaining it and doing this thing, clean the sump out because some of the macroalgae went sexual, caulerpa. And well, it didn't go sexual, but it died. Yeah, I guess you could say it went sexual. It all died off, and that's what happens when it goes sexual. But I haven't found it in my tank. I never do because I have tangs. But I reached in there to get the dead plants out of there, and I smelled sulfur. Now, there's a difference between dead plant material and sulfur. This was a sulfury smell. And the second I got the dead material out, it got kicked up into the return pump, and those zinnias right there instantaneously started closing up. So did the Kenya tree, and the fish started breathing heavy, and I was like, oh my god, what if it wasn't the bag of salt that crashed my tank? What if it was sulfur, what if it was hydrogen sulfide in the deep sand bed? Now, the deep sand bed's isolated. I put a whole bunch of little critters in there to keep it going, but I said, what if the deep sand bed is actually finally pushing the nutrients back in the tank? Deep sand beds work. I've read so many articles and so many forums and so many people's past experience saying deep sand beds work for years and then they just spill everything back out. Kind of like live rock if it goes bad. So I said to myself, is it sulfur that I smelled? It smelled like sulfur. I know what sulfur smells like. It smells like rotten eggs, really strong rotten eggs. And I said to myself, if the deep sand bed in fact did that, or maybe it was the salt, the fact that I'm smelling something and I'm still getting hair algae when I maintain my tank and water quality is good, I said maybe the deep sand bed is leaching nutrients back in my tank. So I said, okay, that's two things. If it's sulfur, I'm getting the deep sand bed out of here. If it's leaching nutrients back into my tank, it's getting out of here. And 3, if the caulerpa is going sexual and dying off and leaching its nutrients back, I'm getting it out of here. So it could have been just the nutrients from the caulerpa going sexual, and now that you guys see, no hair algae, or at least the tangs are keeping it in check. So I said it's either one or two things, or both. The refugium, the deep sand bed, or both. So I thought about it, and I wanted to renovate my system. And I said to myself, yeah, you guys can see it. There's a little sneak peek right there. We'll talk about it in a second. I said to myself, man, I was thinking about getting like a 50-gallon refugium filled with mangroves, and that was really excessive. 50 gallons on a 55-gallon tank, that's excessive. But I guarantee there have been no nitrates or phosphates. I said to myself, wait a minute, I have this 10-gallon which acts as my auto top-off reservoir, and I never remember to refill it. And you guys can see in my video, it's always at that one water level. I never remember to refill it. And I said to myself, why don't I just use it as a isolated refugium? And I'm going to put Chaeto in there. I'm going to stuff Chaeto all the way to the rim almost. And it's going to have super slow flow going through it. That way the plants have time to eat up the nutrients. It's kind of dark down here, but that barb, and I'll explain in another video, that barb at the end is going to pour water down here, and it's going to exit here. And I said, what about drilling? I don't want to drill the glass and crack it, even though this tank costs like $13. What do you do? So I said, let's go back to my DIY days and make a DIY CPVC overflow 1/2 inch. That way it's slow flow. I've got it outside. It's drying right now. I'm painting it with Krylon Fusion spray paint. And then I said, man, you know, if I'm going to redo the sump, which I'm going to do, I'm going to redo the entire sump. And I said, if I'm going to redo the sump, I might as well pimp it out. And that's when I said, oh, I'm going to make a manifold. And I made a big manifold. Let's go over this really quick. I've got a video on how I actually made it. It's on my computer. This right here is barb fitting. Vinyl tube's going to slip on this, and it's going to go into my return pump. And instead of doing union, I can just take the tubing off. This ball valve right here leads to the refugium, and that's going to allow me to increase or decrease the flow, and that's going to lead that way. This one right here is going to be my foudn reactor. I'm going to add a carbon reactor. I may or may not have the hang on the back filter on there, but I see a benefit because the sump gets dirty, and this will collect the waste in the sump instead of me getting there siphoning. It doesn't matter where your waste collects, it's going to collect, and if it's in a concentrated area like this, at least there's beneficial bacteria there, and I can easily just remove the cartridges. This valve right here is going to be an extra if I want to hook up a chiller or some kind of calcium reactor or something else. This one right here is going to lead to the return. It's actually going to go into the bottom of that UV light, and then the UV light is going to go right back into the return. So the UV light's not going anywhere. I'm going to change the filtration up. Then it comes around to this one, and oh, this is the fun part. So I've got an automatic water changer down there, right? It's got a heater, power head in there. All I have to really do to start making water is hit a switch right there in that power strip. Well, guess what? When I want to empty water, now I have tubing right here. I can put it right in the bucket when I'm ready to do a water change. All I have to do is come over here, turn that valve, and I can fill a bucket up. And when that bucket gets filled, guess what? Boom, turn the valve off. I just drained water from my system with the pump still on. And over here, go over to the other side, hit a switch, push the water back in. When the water level gets low, I always turn the heater off so it doesn't crack just in case. And then when the water gets really low and the pump starts gurgling, I turn the system off, plug the heater back up, and unplug the outlet from my main outlet. That way it can't turn back on. So guys, the sump is getting an extreme makeover sump edition. I've got a video on where I'm making the manifold. It looks so good. I asked my girlfriend, what color should I paint it? Blue? I was wanting blue. She said black, and I said, man, I don't know, but she's always right. I guess women are always right. I didn't just say that, did I? But they are, guys. You don't want to admit it, but women are usually right. Can't believe I said that on YouTube, but it's true. I'm not sexist, and I don't hold any of those kind of grudges or conflicts, but she's usually right, so I listened to her, and I'm glad I did because it looks really good. Guys, comment, rate, and subscribe. Tell me what you think. Thumbs up for the beautiful tangs. Thumb up for the new... Oh my god, it opened up even more. Go back to the beginning of this video. Look how much it opened up even more. Wow. Beautiful Gorgonian. I love that coral. Comment, rate, subscribe, guys. Later.